Imagine this. You wake up one morning, the sunlight streaming through your window, and for a moment, everything feels still. You reach for your phone, as you always do, but this time, something feels different. The screen lights up, and instead of the usual flood of notifications, there's nothing. No emails, no messages, no updates. Just a blank, silent void. For the first time in years, you are alone with your thoughts. And then it hits you. A question so unsettling it feels like the ground beneath you has shifted. When was the last time you truly created something? Not a reply to an email, not a social media post, not a half-hearted attempt at a hobby you abandoned after a week. When was the last time you felt the raw, electric thrill of bringing something new into the world? The silence grows louder. You realize, with a sinking feeling, that you can't remember. This is the paradox of modern life. We live in an age of unprecedented access to tools, knowledge, and inspiration. We have more ways to express ourselves than ever before: art, music, writing, coding, design. And yet, for so many of us, creativity feels like a distant memory, a relic of childhood. We scroll through endless feeds of other people's creations, marveling at their ingenuity, while our own creative spark flickers and fades. Why? Why is it that the more connected we become, the more disconnected we feel from our own imagination? Why does the constant hum of productivity, the meetings, the deadlines, the endless to-do lists, leave us feeling emptier, not fuller? Why does the modern world, with all its promises of freedom and self-expression, feel like a cage for the creative spirit? These questions are not just philosophical musings. They are urgent, existential cries for meaning. Because creativity is not a luxury. It is the essence of what makes us human. It is how we make sense of the world, how we process our emotions, how we leave our mark on the universe. Without it, we are reduced to mere consumers, passive observers in a world that demands active participants. But here's the deeper, more unsettling truth. The modern world is not just indifferent to creativity, it is actively hostile to it. It is a system designed to optimize, to streamline, to commodify. It rewards conformity over originality, efficiency over exploration, consumption over creation. And in this system, the creative spirit is not just neglected, it is systematically dismantled. So, what happens when we lose our ability to create? What happens when the well of imagination runs dry? The answer is not just personal, it is collective. A world without creativity is a world without art, without innovation, without progress. It is a world where the human spirit is reduced to a shadow of itself, where we are no longer the authors of our own lives, but merely characters in someone else's story. This is the weight of the question before us. How has modern life killed creativity? And more importantly, how do we reclaim it? The journey to answer these questions will take us deep into the hidden forces that shape our lives. Forces we rarely question, but that dictate how we think, feel, and act. It will challenge everything we think we know about productivity, success, and even happiness. And it will force us to confront the most uncomfortable truth of all, that the enemy of creativity is not out there in the world. It is within us. But before we can break free, we must first understand the chains that bind us. To understand how modern life kills creativity, we must first confront the invisible forces that shape our behavior. These forces are not random, They are the result of a carefully constructed system, one that prioritizes efficiency, predictability, and control over the messy, unpredictable nature of creativity. At the heart of this system lies a paradox. The more we strive for productivity, the less creative we become. Think about it. From the moment we wake up, our lives are governed by schedules, deadlines, and routines. We are taught from a young age to value measurable outcomes, grades, salaries, promotions, over the intangible joys of exploration and discovery. We are trained to think in terms of inputs and outputs, to see time as a resource to be optimized rather than a space to be inhabited. This mindset is not accidental. It is the product of a culture that worships at the altar of productivity, a culture that equates busyness with worth and idleness with guilt. As the philosopher Bertrand Russell once observed, the time you enjoy wasting is not wasted time. But in a world that demands constant output, such wisdom feels like heresy. The psychological toll of this system is profound. Creativity thrives in conditions of freedom, play, and experimentation. It requires space to wander, to fail, to dream. But modern life leaves little room for such luxuries. Instead, it bombards us with distractions, demands, and expectations, leaving our minds fragmented and exhausted. Carl Jung, the pioneering psychologist, understood this deeply. He believed that the modern individual is caught in a state of psychic inflation, where the demands of the external world overwhelm the inner life. In such a state, the creative impulse, what Jung called the divine spark, is suffocated under the weight of societal expectations. Friedrich Nietzsche, too, warned of the dangers of a life devoid of creativity. He saw modernity as a force that stifles the Dionysian spirit, the primal, chaotic energy that fuels art, music, and self-expression. In its place, we are left with the Apollonian, the rational, ordered, and sterile. The result, Nietzsche argued, is a society that values conformity over individuality, logic over intuition, and safety over risk. But perhaps the most insidious force at play is what the philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre called bad faith, the act of deceiving oneself into believing that one has no choice, no freedom, no agency. In the context of creativity, bad faith manifests as the belief that we are not creative, that creativity is the domain of a select few, or that we simply don't have the time or energy to create. This self-deception is reinforced by societal narratives that equate creativity with exceptionalism. We are told that creativity is a rare gift, reserved for the Mozarts and the Picassos of the world. But this is a lie. Creativity is not a gift. It is a birthright. It is the natural state of the human mind, the expression of our deepest selves. So why do we suppress it? The answer lies in fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of the unknown. Modern life, with its emphasis on success and achievement, amplifies these fears. It teaches us to avoid risk, to stay within the lines, to color by numbers. And in doing so, it robs us of the very thing that makes life worth living, the ability to create. But the problem goes deeper than individual psychology. It is rooted in the very structure of modern society, a structure that prioritizes consumption over creation, efficiency over exploration, and conformity over individuality. Consider the role of technology. On the surface, technology promises to liberate us, to give us more time and freedom to pursue our passions. But in reality, it often does the opposite. Social media, for example, creates the illusion of connection while isolating us from our own thoughts. Algorithms feed us a steady diet of content designed to capture our attention, leaving little room for introspection or imagination. The result is a kind of cognitive colonization, a takeover of the mind by external forces. As the writer Aldous Huxley warned in Brave New World Revisited, the greatest triumphs of propaganda have been accomplished not by doing something, but by refraining from doing. Great is truth, but still greater from a practical point of view is silence about truth. In this context, the silence about creativity is deafening. We are taught to value what we can measure, money, status, possessions, over what we cannot. And in doing so, we lose touch with the very essence of what it means to be human. But there is hope. To break free from this system, we must first understand it. We must recognize the forces that shape our behavior and question the narratives we have been taught. Only then can we begin to reclaim our creative spirit. The journey ahead is not easy. It requires courage, curiosity, and a willingness to confront the uncomfortable truths about ourselves and the world we live in. But it is a journey worth taking, because on the other side lies something extraordinary: the freedom to create, to imagine, to be fully alive. And so, we turn to the next question. What are the unseen consequences of a life devoid of creativity? How does this loss shape not only our individual lives, but the very fabric of society? The answers may surprise you, and they may force you to see the world in a radically new way. Imagine a world where every street, every building, every piece of art, every song, every story, every invention, everything that makes life vibrant and meaningful was created by someone who dared to imagine something new. Now imagine the opposite, a world where no one creates, a world where ideas are recycled, where innovation is stifled, where the human spirit is reduced to a mechanical repetition of what already exists. This is not a dystopian fantasy. It is the direction in which we are headed. The loss of creativity is not just a personal tragedy, it is a collective one. It shapes the way we think, the way we relate to one another, and the way we navigate the world. And its consequences are far more profound than we realize. At the individual level, the erosion of creativity leads to a sense of emptiness, a feeling that something vital is missing. This is not just a vague dissatisfaction, it is a deep existential ache. Viktor Frankl, the psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, argued that the primary drive of human beings is not pleasure or power, but meaning. And meaning, he believed, is found in the act of creation, whether it's creating art, building relationships, or pursuing a purpose greater than oneself. When we lose our ability to create, we lose our connection to meaning. We become passive consumers rather than active participants in our own lives. We fill the void with distractions, endless scrolling, binge watching, shopping. But these are temporary fixes. They numb the pain, but do not heal it. The psychological toll of this loss is immense. Studies have shown that engaging in creative activities reduces stress, improves mood, and enhances cognitive function. Creativity is not just a luxury, it is a necessity for mental and emotional well-being. Without it, we are more prone to anxiety, depression, and burnout. But the consequences extend beyond the individual. They ripple outward, shaping the very fabric of society. Consider the role of creativity in innovation. Every major breakthrough in history, from the invention of the wheel to the discovery of electricity, to the creation of the internet, was the result of someone daring to think differently. Creativity is the engine of progress, the force that drives humanity forward. But in a world that prioritizes efficiency over exploration, this engine is sputtering. We are living in an age of incrementalism, where small improvements are celebrated while bold ideas are dismissed as impractical or unrealistic. The result is a stagnation of imagination, a narrowing of possibilities. This stagnation is not just a loss of potential, it is a threat to our survival. The challenges we face as a species, climate change, political polarization, economic inequality, require creative solutions. They demand that we think outside the box, that we imagine new ways of living and being. But if we are too afraid, too tired, or too distracted to create, we will never rise to meet these challenges. The cultural consequences are equally profound. Art, music, literature, and film are not just forms of entertainment. They are mirrors that reflect our collective soul. They help us make sense of our experiences, connect with one another, and imagine new possibilities. But in a world that values quantity over quality, speed over depth, and profit over purpose, the arts are often reduced to commodities. They are produced not to inspire or challenge, but to sell. The result is a cultural landscape that feels increasingly shallow and homogenized, a world of remakes, reboots, and algorithms designed to give us more of what we already know. This cultural stagnation has a chilling effect on the human spirit. It reinforces the belief that creativity is a luxury, not a necessity. It teaches us to settle for what is safe and familiar rather than daring to explore the unknown. And then there are the social consequences. Creativity is not just an individual act. It is a communal one. It thrives in spaces of collaboration, dialogue, and exchange. It requires trust, vulnerability, and a willingness to take risks. But modern life, with its emphasis on competition and individualism, erodes these spaces. We are taught to see others as rivals rather than allies, to guard our ideas rather than share them, to prioritize our own success over the collective good. The result is a society that feels increasingly fragmented and disconnected. The loss of creativity, then, is not just a personal or cultural issue. It is a societal one. It shapes the way we think, the way we relate to one another, and the way we navigate the world. And its consequences are far-reaching. But here's the thing. These consequences are not inevitable. They are the result of choices we have made as individuals and as a society. And if we have the power to make these choices, we also have the power to unmake them. The question is, how? How do we break free from the forces that stifle creativity? How do we reclaim our imagination, our sense of wonder, our ability to create? The answer lies in rebellion, a radical shift in perspective that challenges everything we thought we knew about productivity, success, and even happiness. It requires us to question the narratives we have been taught, to confront our fears, and to embrace the messy, unpredictable nature of creativity. This rebellion is not easy. It requires courage, curiosity, and a willingness to step into the unknown. But it is a rebellion worth waging. Because on the other side lies something extraordinary, the freedom to create, to imagine, to be fully alive. And so we turn to the next question. What does this rebellion look like? How do we break free from the forces that stifle creativity and reclaim our creative spirit? The answers may surprise you, and they may force you to see the world in a radically new way. Rebellion begins with a single radical act: the decision to stop, to pause, to step off the treadmill of productivity and ask yourself, what am I running from? What am I running toward? This act of stopping is not passive, it is profoundly subversive. In a world that values constant motion, stillness is a revolutionary act. It is a declaration that your worth is not tied to your output, that your value is not measured by your productivity. But stopping is only the beginning. To truly break free from the forces that stifle creativity, you must embark on a journey of unlearning, a process of shedding the beliefs, habits, and narratives that have been imposed upon you. The first step is to confront the myth of scarcity. Modern life thrives on the idea that there is never enough. Not enough time, not enough money, not enough success. This mindset keeps us trapped in a cycle of striving, always chasing the next thing but never arriving. But what if the opposite were true? What if there is enough time, enough resources, enough potential, if only we learn to see it? This shift in perspective is not just philosophical, it is practical. When you let go of the belief that you must constantly produce, you create space for creativity to flourish. You permit yourself to play, to experiment, to fail. And in doing so, you rediscover the joy of creation. The next step is to embrace uncertainty. Creativity is inherently uncertain. It requires venturing into the unknown, taking risks, and embracing the possibility of failure. But modern life, with its emphasis on control and predictability, teaches us to fear uncertainty. To break free, you must learn to see uncertainty not as a threat, but as an opportunity. As the philosopher Søren Kierkegaard wrote, life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards. Creativity is the act of living forwards, of stepping into the unknown with curiosity and courage. This requires a shift in mindset. Instead of asking, what if I fail? Ask, what if I succeed? Instead of fearing the unknown, embrace it as a space of possibility. But rebellion is not just an individual act, it is a collective one. Creativity thrives in community, in spaces of collaboration and exchange. To reclaim your creative spirit, you must seek out these spaces, whether it's a writing group, an art class, or a circle of like-minded friends. These spaces are not just sources of inspiration, they are acts of resistance. In a world that values competition and individualism, they remind us of the power of connection, of the magic that happens when we come together to create. And then there is the act of creation itself. To break free from the forces that stifle creativity, you must create. Not for an audience, not for recognition, but for the sheer joy of it. This is harder than it sounds. The voices of doubt, the fear of judgment, the pressure to be perfect, they are always there, whispering in your ear. But you must learn to silence them. As the artist Pablo Picasso once said, every child is an artist. The problem is how to remain an artist once we grow up. To remain an artist, you must cultivate a sense of play. Play is not just for children, it is the essence of creativity. It is the act of exploring, experimenting, and imagining without fear of judgment or failure. But play requires time that modern life often denies us. To reclaim this time, you must learn to say no. No to the endless demands on your attention. No to the pressure to be constantly productive. No to the belief that your worth is tied to your output. This is not easy. It requires courage, discipline, and a willingness to disappoint others. But it is necessary, because only by saying no to the things that drain you can you say yes to the things that bring you alive. And finally, rebellion requires a redefinition of success. In a world that values external achievements, money, status, fame, it is easy to lose sight of what truly matters. True success is not measured by what you have, but by who you are. It is the ability to live authentically, to create meaningfully, and to connect deeply. It is the courage to be yourself in all your messy, imperfect glory. This is the heart of the rebellion, the decision to live creatively, to embrace the unknown, and to reclaim your sense of wonder. It is a radical act, one that challenges the very foundations of modern life. But it is also an act of hope. Because when you choose to create, you are not just expressing yourself. You are affirming the value of the human spirit. You are declaring that life is not just about survival, but about meaning, connection, and beauty. And so we turn to the final question. What is the ultimate truth about creativity? What is the deepest, most powerful realization that can transform not only your life, but the way you see the world? Here it is, the ultimate truth, the revelation that changes everything. Creativity is not something you do, it is something you are. This is not a metaphor or a poetic flourish. It is a fundamental truth about the nature of existence. Creativity is not a skill to be mastered or a resource to be tapped. It is the essence of your being. It is the force that animates you, the spark that makes you alive. Think about it. Every thought you have, every word you speak, every action you take is an act of creation. You are constantly shaping the world around you, weaving the fabric of reality with your choices, your intentions, your presence. Even in the most mundane moments, brushing your teeth, making a meal, walking down the street, you are creating. You are bringing something into existence that was not there before. This realization is both liberating and terrifying. Liberating because it means you are already creative. You don't need to learn how to be creative, you just need to remember. Terrifying because it means you can never escape the responsibility of creation. Every moment is an opportunity to create, and every moment is a choice. But here's the deeper truth. Creativity is not just about what you bring into the world, it is about how you see the world. It is about perceiving the extraordinary in the ordinary, the infinite in the finite, the sacred in the mundane. This is what the great artists, thinkers, and visionaries understood. They did not create out of thin air. They saw what others could not see. They looked at a blank canvas and saw a masterpiece. They looked at a block of stone and saw a sculpture. They looked at the chaos of life and saw meaning. And so can you. The ultimate act of creativity is not painting a picture or writing a poem. It is transforming the way you see. It is choosing to see the world not as a fixed, static place, but as a living, evolving canvas. It is recognizing that every moment is an opportunity to create beauty, to create meaning, to create connection. This shift in perception is not just a philosophical idea, it is a practical tool. When you see the world as a canvas, you become an active participant in your own life. You stop waiting for inspiration to strike and start seeking it in everything you do. You stop seeing obstacles as barriers and start seeing them as opportunities. You stop living as a passive observer and start living as a creator. But this shift requires courage. It requires you to let go of the need for control, to embrace the messiness and unpredictability of life. It requires you to trust in your own creativity, to believe that you have something valuable to contribute, even if you don't know what it is yet. And it requires you to confront the deepest fear of all, the fear of being seen. Creativity is an act of vulnerability. It is an act of putting yourself out there, of sharing your thoughts, your feelings, your vision with the world. And that is terrifying, because when you create, you open yourself up to judgment, to criticism, to rejection. But here's the thing. The fear of being seen is also the fear of being alive. To create is to be fully alive, to embrace the fullness of your humanity. And while that is scary, it is also the most beautiful thing you can do. So, how do you take this final step? How do you embrace the ultimate truth of creativity and live it fully? The answer is simple, but not easy. You start. You start by creating, not because you have to, but because you want to. You start by seeing the world as a canvas and yourself as an artist. You start by embracing the messiness, the uncertainty, the vulnerability of creation. And you start by remembering that creativity is not a destination. It is a journey. It is not something you achieve. It is something you live. This is the ultimate truth. Creativity is not just a part of life. It is life itself. It is the force that connects you to yourself, to others, to the universe. It is the way you make sense of the world, the way you leave your mark, the way you say, I was here. And so, as you stand at the edge of this realization, as you feel the weight of its truth, ask yourself this: what will you create? What will you bring into the world? What will you leave behind? The answers to these questions are not just about art or innovation or success. They are about who you are and who you want to be. They are about the legacy you will leave, the impact you will have, the life you will live. And so, with this truth in your heart, go forth. Create boldly, wildly, unapologetically. See the world as a canvas and yourself as an artist. Embrace the messiness, the uncertainty, the vulnerability, and remember, creativity is not something you do. It is something you are. This is your revolution. This is your rebellion. This is your life. Now go create it.